Hi, my name's John Davis, and with Rishi Sunak outlining the wind down of the furlough scheme yesterday, I thought it would be useful to explain the key dates and changes and the impact on business owners. I won't go back to the beginning and explain what the furlough scheme, or to give it its full title, the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, is. I'll assume you're sick to death of the word furlough by now and kind of know the ins and outs. If you don't want a recap though, we do actually have a separate video on that you're welcome to take a look at. But the basic premise, I guess, is that if you do need to temporarily lay off staff during the coronavirus crisis, the government will currently pay 80% of their gross salary with a maximum funding of £2,500 per month per employee. In addition, the government will also pay the employer's NI and also the employer's statutory pension contributions. This was originally intended to be until the end of May. It was announced a few weeks ago to be extended to 31st October, but with a warning then that employers would have to start sharing the costs. And the share of those costs was confirmed yesterday, the 29th of May. So what are the key dates and changes? Well, the first one will be on the 10th of June, because this will be the last date you can actually place someone on furlough. Strictly speaking, the scheme will be closed to new entrants after the 30th of June, but 10th of June is actually the key date, as they must have been furloughed for a minimum of 21 days before the cut-off. Then we'll hit the 1st of July, and from this date a big change will actually be it'll be possible to bring back furloughed staff part-time. To date it has been very much all or nothing. Either somebody's in work or they're furloughed, there was no middle ground. So this is actually a major change. When someone is working full part-time, the employer will pay the wages while they work and claim the 80% furlough while they don't. And the government said this can be on any amount of hours or any kind of shift pattern during a week or a month, so it is really flexible. The next change will be 1st of August. From then, employers are going to have to start funding some of the costs of furloughed staff. And what will happen is employers must pay the employer's NI and employers' statutory pension contributions for furloughed staff. Now, according to the government, so far around 40% of businesses who have claimed furlough haven't actually claimed either of these costs anyway, so be unaffected. But based overall on average claims to date, this change means that employers will be paying about 5% of the total cost of employment pre-furlough, i.e. 5% of the cost if those employees are actually working and paid as usual. The next change will be on the 1st of September, and on that date the government will cut its funding to 70% of gross wages. The maximum grant per employee will be £2,187.50 per person. So employers will need to pay 10% of the wages plus those NI and pension costs. Again, according to the government, this is estimated about 14% of the average employment costs pre-furlough. Next change on the 1st of October, the last month of the furlough sees the funding cut again. From the 1st of October, the government will pay 60% of gross wages, so it'll be capped at £1,875 per employee. So employers will pay 20% of the wages, plus again those NI and pension costs. And this is estimated to be about 23% of the average employment costs pre-furlough. And then basically after the 31st of October, so from the 1st of November, all government funding will end and the scheme will come to a close. So those are the changes to the scheme. Overall, this scheme has been kind of a really good thing, and it's good that the government are supporting businesses and helping people retain their jobs through the coronavirus crisis. But there is also a recognition the government can't fund it indefinitely or even fund the full 80% for 8 months that the scheme will run for. It's cost £15 billion so far. It's expected to cost £80 billion in total. So therefore, there is a need for business owners to contribute. The government's looked at it and they estimate that if you furlough a staff member full-time for the whole 8 months from 1st of March to 31st October, you as an employer, your share of the cost would be about 5% of the total costs of having that staff member full-time, kind of pre-furlough for 8 months. So they are funding the lion's share of it, but there's a recognition that employers have to do something as well. What it might, of course, do is force people into that difficult decision of letting staff go. The idea of the scheme was to fund staff costs for employees who would have a job to go back to. If there isn't going to be a job at the end of this, employers are expected to make redundancies, and some airlines particularly been in the news for doing this already. Now, for me, perhaps the issue or the problem with the scheme is perhaps the situation is different in different sectors. For example, restaurants and hospitality businesses can't open right now. But even when they can open, it's likely to be reduced capacity. Social distancing will mean they can't use all the tables. Therefore, they won't actually need all the staff back straight away. But they won't be bringing enough cash to even kind of fund the 10% or the 20% of the wages. I think there kind of is an issue there. It'd be the same in the travel business, which will face similar issues over obviously waiting to be able to for people to have to travel much anyway. Then actually just reduce capacity on planes. Also just actually people's plans will change. They might want to go abroad right now. So perhaps there could be more support in those sectors. But for the rest of us, there's a recognition, I guess, that we do have to start to get back to normal, even if it is a new normal with a new way of running your business in these changing times. So I hope you found that useful. If you do have any questions at all, please do get in touch. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch all of our other videos to help your business through the coronavirus crisis. Thank you.